Welcome to Trial Lawyer View, a podcast for and about trial lawyers. We tell the stories about trial lawyers who go to battle every day in courtrooms throughout the United States for injury victims. This is about their stories and their practices. Trial Lawyer View is brought to you by Synergy Settlement Services. Synergy allows trial lawyers to focus on what they do best by handling the difficult issues that arise in settlement, like troublesome lien resolution issues, Medicare secondary payer compliance, government benefit preservation techniques, and complex settlement consulting. Without further delay, here's another episode of Trial Lawyer View with Leif Lundberg.
Welcome to a special episode of Trial Lawyer Review, where we're going to dive into the world of attorney fee deferral with my special guest, Leif Lundberg. Leif is a trailblazer in this arena and is the president and chairman of JurisPrudent. JurisPrudent is a leading company specializing in attorney fee deferral for contingent legal fees. I'm thrilled to have Leif on the podcast today, shares insights and expertise on how trial lawyers can leverage this powerful tool to maximize their fees and the efficiencies in their law practice. Let me read a little bit about his background. He grew up in Sweden, where he obtained a Bachelor of Law from Lund University, followed by a Master's of Law and Economics while attending Oxford, Hamburg, and Ghent universities. He got into the field of attorney fee deferral in 2000. Having had the benefit of working closely with trial lawyers and studying what others were doing in the attorney fee deferral market, he co-founded JurisPrudent Deferral Solutions in 2014 with the sole purpose of creating fee deferral solutions that give trial lawyers better quality, transparency, and benefit safety. As president, Leif is responsible for day-to-day operations of the company and manages its sales and marketing efforts. Leif, welcome to Trial Lawyer Review. I'm very glad that you can take the time to be with me today. I know you're on vacation, so we'll keep it brief, but give everybody the down low on how to make sure they're maximizing their contingent legal fees in their practices. Can you explain briefly what attorney fee deferral programs are, such as the one offered by JurisPrudent?
Basically, it's tax-deferred compensation. An attorney is deferring taxation on fees that they've earned as providing services for the client, and so the key is to defer that taxation before you take receipt of the income. So it's governed by constructive receipt and economic benefit doctrines, which is really the same doctrines that govern traditional executive compensation. Where when an executive providing services to their employer is able to defer their taxation. So it's governed by those same rules.
Those methods are, well tried and true. I mean, these deferred compensation programs for highly compensated individuals is not a new thing. It's just the idea of bringing that sort of solution that's unique and different for trial lawyers and contingent fees, although it's not really all that new. It's been around obviously for 20 years now, but the idea is essentially the same, is leveraging these options to provide optionality in terms of timing of income for trial lawyers. Can you explain the process of attorney fee deferral with a solution like JurisPrudent and how it works in practice, in a trial lawyer's practice?
The key is for the law firm or the attorney to make an election to defer before being a constructive receipt, which really occurs when settlement is finalized or the release is signed in the case, right? Because then there's no more work to be done. You're basically just waiting for the check. So the actual negotiation or the deferral itself has to occur before then. And then, per tax lawyers, they also want to see having the client's consent to the fee deferral, which is language you can add to your fee agreements that allows for you to defer or structure your fees. And I would highly recommend all attorneys to include that in their fee agreements, just giving them the free option to defer if they choose to do so. So That's the process. It's all about timing. I know they're focused on selling the case, but if they want to defer, they have to do it prior to the final settlement in the case. And yeah, that's how it works.
For a trial lawyer, basically, they've got to make sure that ultimately the election is made prior to settlement and they modify their fee agreement with their clients. And probably, for any lawyer that wants to have some optionality, modifying their fee agreement that allows for them to make that election to defer is good, because then they have the ability when the time comes, say it's in their practice, they've got a bigger case that ultimately they don't want to have all of those fees be taxable in the year that case settles. They've got that ability because it's already in the fee agreement that provides for it. And then do you guys have suggested language that we can provide as part of the podcast show notes so that a trial lawyer can modify their fee agreements to make sure that they've got that optionality?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be happy to provide template language for standard fee agreements, and also an addendum that you can add to an existing fee agreement that the client's already signed, but he would need to, or she, or them would need to sign it prior, the addendum prior to final settlement.
And in terms of the process, just so listeners understand, they cannot take receipt of the fees ultimately in their trust account, right? The defendant would be involved in some way in sending the monies either directly to JurisPrudent, or could be through a qualified settlement fund, something of that sort, to make sure that ultimately the fees are not coming from the lawyer's trust account.
Preferably, it's always better to have payment instructions as part of the release, where you have the defendant send a separate check for the deferred amount. But you don't have to do that, because the defendant is, it's not a party to the actual fee, right? The client is, per the contingency fee agreement, and that's why we, our tax lawyers say you need to have the client's consent, before you're deferring, so it, as long as you have those two things in place, one, you have the consent from the client, and two, you have made that election to defer by signing the deferral contract before the release is signed in the case. You could have the money flow through your trust account, and then from there to our trustee and custodian, Bank of New York Mellon. So it's not sent directly to JurisPrudent. It's sent to Bank of New York Mellon, acting as trustee custodian of the assets that fund the future payments. So, it could go through the trust account, but you have to have those things in place before that happens.
So you just talked about trustee and Bank of New York Mellon, and can you just explain briefly the construct of the JurisPrudent solution, just so listeners understand exactly how this works?
The deferral contract is entered into with JurisPrudent. JurisPrudent is the fee deferral provider. We set aside the assets that fund our obligation to pay the future periodic payments with Bank of New York Mellon, who is not just a custodian, but they're also acting as trustee, providing institutional oversight. Then there's an online platform that's managed by Atlas Administrative Services. Basically, it gives the attorneys the same ability to view, manage their deferral accounts, similar to like a 401k or an IRA. They can change investment selections, manage the timing of their income within certain restrictions that we could talk about later. But so that's how it's set up, and they can use their own financial advisor, or they can use model portfolios that are part of the investment options. We provide a menu of low-cost index funds. These are Vanguard funds, iShare funds that are continuously monitored. So if we find a cheaper fund that does the same thing as an existing fund that we have on the menu, we will add that or replace that fund. So we're trying to keep the costs low for our clients and still give that diversity and richness in investment selections that most people require in their 401ks or IRAs. So it's working pretty well.
What are the annualized costs for administration of the solution that JurisPrudent provides?
So we charge 1% annually. That's our standard fee. And so, if the investments grow, our fees grow with our clients. And so if it goes down, then our fee goes down as well. So we're sort of aligned with the attorneys. We want them to do well. So it's the 1%. There is an extra charge for the model portfolios of 10 basis points, which is fairly relative to our competition. It's fairly expensive. Yeah.
Can you talk about how these attorney fee deferral programs help trial lawyers effectively manage their finances and cash flow? Because I know, having worked with clients for years, one of the things that is always a challenge is spikes in income, because trial lawyers who have contingent fees, they just don't know in any given year what's going to go to trial and reach verdict or what's going to settle. And, you've got those spikes in income, and how, a lawyer can use this type of solution over time to aggregate fees together as an investment vehicle that's outside of your typical retirement planning or cash flow management solutions that are normally used.
Basically, you're deferring income, and you can, you have future income coming to you. So you're basically you're avoiding the immediate taxation, first of all. And then you're investing it pre-tax. And you have an ability to actually manage the timing of those future payments within certain restrictions. But what it does is it can make the income more predictable, right? It's very lumpy. Trial lawyers' income in general are very lumpy. So here you can basically have it in coming to the firm or pay the firm a set amount each year, or a set percentage of the deferral balance each year. But you also have the ability to push it out if you wanted to. So there is this ability to manage the timing, and you can have it on a sort of an automatic redeferral schedule where it's pushed forward in time until you're ready to start receiving. And while it's pushed forward, it is continuing to grow tax deferred, right? So you're getting the advantage of this kind of faster growth by the compounding the interest on your account, because you're not taxed on the interest, the dividends that you would be in a taxable investment account. So yeah, it's an ability to manage cash flow better. It gives you more flexibility, and hopefully better returns, because you're not taxed on the growth until you take it out. So I think it can be, if managed correctly, it can be very beneficial for trial lawyers.
Yeah, that pre-tax and also controlling timing of income are two huge benefits of doing something like this. Is there an ideal case size or situation that's ideal for utilizing the fee deferral services? And I ask that because I know, having worked with clients, that sometimes firms have smaller fees that they still want to defer, and when they aggregate all those together, sometimes I think lawyers think that it's got to be $1 million fee to utilize these types of solutions. But I know from firms I've worked with, there's plenty of situations where smaller fees, but done in a more regular way and as part of a plan, is a really good way to plan for a lawyer's future.
It's you're avoiding the immediate taxation, and then you have this ability to defer the income, and it's really any case, any type of settlement, as long as it's on a contingency fee basis, right? Because that's the key to be able to defer, and most trial lawyers they start deferring once they know they're going to have too much taxable income, right? So we see a lot of activity at the end of the year, usually. But it can be a larger case. It can be several smaller cases, and you don't have to defer 100% of the fee. So you could have sort of a standard arrangement where you basically say, hey, I'm going to defer 25% of all my fees going forward, So you're putting some away and taking the advantage of the tax deferral, and then you have the other 75 to cover your expenses, on an ongoing basis. So yeah, I mean, any case that's on contingency is what you can defer from.
Yeah, really great point. A firm that I've worked closely with for years, that's exactly what they did. They just took a certain percentage of fees each year and put them into JurisPrudent solution to aggregate those fees and defer taxation on a portion of their fees. Can you lastly talk about what sets JurisPrudent apart from other solutions that are out there in the space for attorney fee deferral?
Sure. So I think number one, we have institutional oversight through Bank of New York Mellon, which I think is unique among fee deferral providers. I think our expenses are extremely competitive, or a fee in comparison to the competition. We provide flexibility in terms of, you can either customize your own portfolio from the investments that we offer, or you can use a model portfolio if you don't want to choose your own investments that matches your risk profile. Or you can add a financial advisor that can help you with the allocation in the account. So there's a lot of flexibility for the lawyers, and the payment that we talked about, right? That you can manage. I mean, the key here is to sort of follow tax deferred or the guidance provided by the existing law, and part of that is Section 49 Cap A, which allows you to redefer a scheduled payment as long as you provide a notice 12 months prior to the scheduled payment date. We've added a month just to be a little more conservative and correct any mistakes that have been made. But anyway, if you push a payment out, a scheduled payment out, you have to do it 13 months prior to the scheduled payment date, and it has to go out a minimum of 5 years. So most of our attorney clients, they basically set up this laddered payment schedule, and they have the payments automatically roll forward 13 months prior to the scheduled payment date. So they just keep rolling forward until they decide to trigger payments. So they turn off that automatic redeferral selection or election and start receiving the payments. And you can also look at each payment as a discrete payment. So if you have 20 different quarterly payments, the first payment, if you want to take it, you can take it. You don't want to redefer it, but the next payment you could redefer as long as you provide a notice 13 months prior. So, and then the next one you could take. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. And I should have mentioned that when you asked the question about managing cash flow. Because also think about this: the more cases you defer from, the more flexibility you will have as an attorney, because you can pick and choose. Okay, what is my fixed income, or I'm sorry, fixed expenses for next year? At least my predictable ones, right? Most law firms would know that. The variable costs they don't know, but they know what the rent is, to know their salaries, all that stuff, right? So you could set it up So you have several cases that you deferred from, and you can basically, when you log into your account, you can see which ones that would fit the bill or that expense that you have in the coming year, and so you trigger payments for those. So I think it gives tremendous flexibility for the attorneys if they utilize it correctly, right? So and we can help with that. So, and you could too, Jason, I believe.
So the initial deferral period, just to summarize, is that 60 months, and then the buckets of payments are the ones that you're talking about, that the timing of income can be controlled by either accepting or deferring out those additional
Correct.
buckets that are coming over the years.
That's right.
Yeah, and I've seen law firms utilize this in exactly the way that you've described, and how we're able to work as a team to help firms ultimately manage their cash flow much better using these types of solutions. It's great that you came on today to talk about this, because I think there's a lot of law firms out there that just don't know about this optionality, and employing it is a game changer for managing the practices of law in a better manner from a cash flow perspective. So thanks for joining me today, Leif. We'll put the information in the show notes so that people can find JurisPrudent on the web, and also provide the template language that we did to discuss for their fee agreements, to make sure that they're able to utilize this solution in the future.
Thank you, Jason. Jason, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for tuning in to Trial Lawyer View. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion and encourage you to tune in to our next episode for more helpful insights about your practice. This podcast is brought to you by Synergy Settlement Services. Visit synergysettlements.com to learn more about how we allow trial lawyers to focus on what they do best.